What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I decided to do a little bit of an old school challenge, and that is camping on every World at War Zombies map until I die, so let's get into it. I started off here on Verrückt, camping in the kitchen. This is the same strategy that I used for my BO3 Verrückt video where I made it to round 50, sitting in that exact same spot. If you haven't seen that video, I highly recommend watching it as well. But for this strategy, it's a little bit different because you can't use the Wunderwaffe due to the shock damage and the fact that it is basically cursed and can take your jug away. So instead, I recommend using either the Thompson, PPSH, and MG42. Those are the three main guns that you could use. Also, you could use a ray gun if you end up getting it, but I didn't get it in this gameplay. And that's pretty much all you're going to need for the weapons. There are some others you could use, obviously the Browning, if you wanted to run the Browning and the MG and swap them, back and forth when one's about to run out of ammo. You could do that, but I'm not a huge fan of the Browning, so I just don't recommend using it. But again, if it's something that you like, you could use it. As far as perks go, for all of these camping strategies, on the maps that have them, obviously Nocturne Toten has no perks, but for the maps that do, I use all three perks. I think that double tap is still just as effective in World at War, even though some people will claim that it's not, simply because it doesn't do extra damage, it just makes you shoot faster, but still, it's one of those things that if you can shoot faster and kill the zombies quicker, I still think that's more effective, especially in later rounds when the guns start to do a lot less damage. So regardless, I use it anyway, but again, that's something that if you're one of those people that refuses to use it on this game, you don't have to. But the spots are pretty much what matters. Like on here, camping in the kitchen, you want to camp with that one door to power closed. That way, both windows are in front of you and you don't have to worry about anything hitting you from the side when the zombies start to come in. Because once the sprinters come in, this map really speeds up. The rounds last maybe a minute at the longest, but you can end them even quicker than that, especially if you're getting insta-kills and nukes. And this spot is pretty nice. It's a good spot because you have two fallback points. You can either fall back to the door, or you can fall back and go out to the left, and you can still shoot zombies through those windows over there because they are all open. But I think the hardest part of Verrückt is just how close quarters it is. You have to deal with the sprinters, and you don't have dog rounds, so you really have to get lucky on the drops too, because it's one of those things, once you run out of ammo, that's pretty much how the strategy will end, either running out of ammo, not getting enough drops, or if you make it high enough and your guns start to shit themselves, which on World at War, it basically late 20s, early 30s is when the guns start not doing as much damage, unless you're on Der Riese, because there is Pack-a-Punch, and guns still do damage into the later 30s, but not as much, as they would early on. But it's one of those things that you just have to be aware of when playing this game, because it is kind of difficult. World at War is one of those games that it's very unforgiving. You don't have quick revive. It doesn't work in solo. So it's one of those games that you can't make any errors. You have to play very carefully. Even if you're doing something as simple as this, camping, you still have to play really, really careful, and that's why I really recommend just using, guns that hold a lot of ammo and that do the damage, because a lot of the guns later on are not going to do anything, especially if you're looking at the MP40, the BAR, and the sawed-off double barrel. Those are all wall weapons on this map, and they don't do too much in the later rounds. They're going to take basically an entire clip, and that sawed-off double barrel is one of those ones that the reload speed is really bad. If you have a gun that has a shitty reload speed, that's why I don't like the Browning for that specific reason. Because the reload is 3 or 4 seconds, whereas the MG, it's only about a 2-second reload, and you can somewhat make it a little bit faster by doing a reload cancel. Once you pull off the mag and put it back on, instead of letting the soldier pull back on the lever, you can do a little YY reload cancel, and it will stop that from happening and make it so much quicker. But this right here is what ends up being my last round. I don't know how I got out of this the first time. That was lucky as hell. And then I got cornered, and that ended it on Verrucht at round 23. Not too bad. I would say you could probably push it to about 25 or 26, but that's what I got, so it is what it is. Now for Nacht der Untoten, this is the hardest map, no perks, no dogs yet again, and just a very unforgiving map, especially this run, because it didn't give me the MG. I couldn't get it. It didn't even give me the Browning, and I hate the Browning, but I would have taken it as a secondary, so I relied on the ray gun, which is basically your only other option because it's the only other thing that's going to do damage. I did take some other guns too, but, just kind of using anything that would do damage at this point, because Nacht is one of those maps that if you can't get the MG, camping up here is actually very, very difficult. But I didn't feel like doing another run because this map honestly bores me to tears because there's just nothing to it. Like, it's fun and all because it's iconic and it's the first Zombies map. It's the first map that I ever played because World at War was my first, Zombies game. But again, it's one of those things that when I'm playing this map, I'd rather play like a more updated version like BO3 where you can use gobblegums and have packed guns. I did do a high round run on this too. I made it to round 50 on the BO3 version. That video is also up here on the channel. I like that version a lot better than this one because this one is just extremely unforgiving. And you'll see how I die at the end because I died to ray gun splash damage, and on here, it's one of those things, if you get hit with it once, you're going down because it's a 2-hit down system, and the splash damage technically counts for 2 hits, which is unfortunate, but it's just how it is. And this game is somewhat glitchy too. Like with the zombies, if they get super close to you, they tend to stick to you, but you can still get out of things mostly by constantly moving and also jumping, like you saw in that little ending there on Verrucht. The fact that I got away from those sprinters for even a second was pretty clutch, even though they still killed me in the end, but it's still clutch that I was even able to get past them that first time, because normally you're not going to. But this is one of those maps that it's a camping spot. You have no fallback point. You're basically in a corner with nothing behind you aside from grenades, which is like the least effective thing possible. If there was bouncing Bettys, it would make it better because you could at least get some kills off those. But that's pretty much all you can do. Like on this map, you're just stuck with the guns that you have and you just have to try and make it. Like, it is one of the most challenging maps to camp on by yourself. If you have someone else with you and you're playing with friends, it's a lot easier. But I would say if you're camping on here by yourself, probably not going to make it much past like round 21 or maybe 22. Just due to the fact that, with no perks, with that slow reload, once these zombies really start speeding up and they start coming in, it gets rough camping up here. Eventually you would have to resort to a training strategy, which is how you do high rounds, but of course for the video this was camping only, no training allowed. So here is where I end up going down. You'll see here after I pop this reload, it was too slow, and there's the splash damage, and that ended off Nacht der Untoten. Now for Der Riese. Now can get into some of the better maps here. Der Riese and Shi No Numa are definitely the two best maps on World at War. But Der Riese, here on the catwalk, I think this is definitely one of the best camping spots in all of Zombies. Just because of everything's right in front of you and everything lines up perfectly to hit easy-ass headshots. And it even makes it okay for the mid-round dogs. It's pretty easy to make it to the late 20s, early 30s on this map, camping up here. And I got lucky on the guns and all my equipment too. I got the monkey bombs, I got the MG and the ray gun, both pack-a-punched early on. I eventually did have to switch out the MG later on for the Browning, but it's one of those things that at least if it's pack-a-punched, it's okay, but it does end up being the death of me due to its extremely slow reload. I mean, that's why I really don't recommend it, but it's one of those things that if you can't get the PPSH and you can't spin the box and get the MG back again, it's the only thing you're going to do. And it was one of those things where I was spinning the box like multiple times. It teddy beared to multiple locations. It wouldn't give it to me, and I was just kind of getting impatient. I was trying to just get to the next round, and I didn't want to have to keep hitting it over and over and over again in hopes of getting it back, because in reality, you're not going to make it much past 30 sitting up here anyways. So that's why when you see later in the gameplay when I'm using it, that's why, because it was just taking forever and it just would not give me it, dude. Horrible box luck is what usually ends up ruining a camping strategy pretty much every time. But I still think it's alright sitting up here with a ray gun. I know a lot of people don't like camping with the ray gun, but I think it's good on here. Just due to the fact that you're not going to take much splash damage at all, because if you spam it, you're going to kill everything as it hits the top of the stairs for the most part. And on the dog rounds, you can kill them before they even come up. You can just shoot out the windows or shoot down here. I only had one dog come up on me, and it didn't even get that close. So all in all, it's effective to use the ray gun, and in my opinion, it's got a much better reload than something like the Browning. It's still a slower reload compared to the MG, or even something like the STG, which is on the wall over there. But the STG really doesn't do the damage in the later 20s and early 30s. It's one of those guns, it's similar to the Thompson. Like, it's still going to kill the zombies, it's still effective, but it's going to take at least half a clip to kill one of them. And you can't do too many reloads when you're sitting up here on the catwalk, because it's another spot where you have no fallback point. At least on Verrückt, you have a fallback point. Up here, you really don't. Your only fallback would be if you're going to resort to the roundabout strategy, which is, you know, either starting up here or in the double tap area, waiting until you get overrun, flipping a trap, and then just like repeating that same thing over and over again. That's basically how you do high rounds on here. I'm going to eventually make a video on that, but I haven't gotten around to wanting to play this map for 50 rounds, because not only is it just difficult to do, 50 rounds on original Der Riese takes forever. Unlike if you play on the Giant, you can get the round 50 in like 2 hours by camping in the teleporter and spamming the WAF. The BO3 high round strategies are so much quicker than World at War. I mean, the only quick strategy is Shi No Numa. You can get to round 50 in like a little over an hour, maybe hour and a half. I do have a video of Shi No Numa high round strategy up on the channel too, if you're interested in it. That's kind of how I started this channel, was just doing high rounds on zombies and showing off like custom maps and stuff. But anyways, this is how I end up going down here on Der Riese. I get cornered. Whenever you pull back around there, that's usually how it's going to happen. And that was the end of Der Riese. So I made 29 rounds sitting up there. That's not too bad. Like I said, you could probably push it to 30, maybe 31 or 32. Now for Shi No Numa, which is my favorite World at War map, and I actually made it the furthest on here. I know, kind of crazy to think that a map that doesn't have Pack-a-Punch, I made it further on, but you'll see why in a couple minutes here. Got very lucky in that spot. If I didn't get that insta-kill, I was definitely dead. I actually had a similar situation happen a couple nights before where I got cornered in that same spot, and I ended up like spraying my way into a nuke. So if you can get lucky on the drops, you can really get out of some crazy situations on here. I also recommend using the bouncing Bettys on here and placing them at any opening or just kind of like in the middle of the floor. It will kill the dogs, but most of the time they do get past it, but it's more effective for your regular rounds because it still does kill the zombies into the later rounds. Just make sure that you put them like far enough away to where if they're running at it, that the pull-up time meets their running speed, because sometimes they can get past it, and for it to kill them, they basically have to trigger it as it's pulling up. Like, as they run towards it, if they get close enough, it has to pull up and hit them basically, like, close enough to them to where it's gonna give enough damage to kill them. I know it's kind of hard to explain, but you'll know what I mean if you've played World at War before. And that's what I did right there. I just put them at those two openings. And on this map, I was actually surprised how far I did make it, because it gets pretty hectic on here, even though it is only 24 zombies, just like Nacht and Verrückt. The fact that you don't have Pack-a-Punch, the only way you're going to get past the 30s is to get pretty lucky on drops, and I did. I ended up getting quite a few insta-kills and nukes, and even max ammos too, that just kept me refilled, because in this one, I wasn't using the PPSH the whole time. I got this later on, and then the box teddy beared and went into the comm room area, which you can't open if you're going to run this strategy. This is the only camping spot on the map, so once I traded it out for the PPSH, I really had to rely on drops, because it's one of those guns that it runs out of ammo quicker than anything else, whereas the MG holds enough ammo that it could actually last you, even if you didn't get a max ammo for an entire round. But luckily I got, pretty lucky on these drops here. There was a max ammo right there. That really is what got me to where I got on this. I mean, it's pretty crazy that, like, the fact that it teddy beared back to that spot, I thought for sure, like, oh, I'm fucked now, because even though the PPSH is good, the fact that it runs out of ammo like that and does significantly less damage than a gun like the MG, it surprised me that I was able to push it as far as I did. But it's one of those things that if the luck is on your side, you're going to be just fine. And these are my last couple rounds here. I ended up making it to round 34, which is probably my highest ever camping on World at War. And of course I end up getting cornered in that same little back area of the room. But I do like this camping spot, because you have that little fallback spot. If you can find a camping spot where you can fall back a little bit, it does make things a little bit easier for you. And again, I did camp with the ray gun on here. I didn't take any damage from it, and it was really effective. The ray gun is basically what saved me on here multiple times. I did have a close call right here on 33 where these guys were coming in. As you can see, the PPSH is not doing much damage at that point, and I was able to just get around them and make it to my final round here. But that could have been an easy down, especially if more of them would have poured in at the same time. I doubt I would have got out of that. Now, if that was the MG, it probably would have killed that zombie. The MG is actually pretty good, even non-Pack-a-Punch, till about maybe 35, I would say. It's one of those guns that it's really more effective than it seems to be. Like, it shoots so fast and it has such a better damage than every other LMG in the game. That's why if you can get it and keep it for an entire round, like an entire time that you play, that's what you'll need. But I ended up going down here, and that ended Shi No Numa. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.